Hi, this is Mike Gonzalez. Welcome to Making Life Better. If you joined me on my last time together with you, we were focused on what I believe to be the most important pursuit. The most important human pursuit on earth is building relationships. I know how important technology is, the advancement of knowledge and building great institutions, but you know what? All of that stuff comes out of people relating to other people. But relationships are comprised of, when I'm speaking of relationships, as the most important pursuit in the world, on earth, the best thing you can do with your time here, I'm really talking about three things. Your pursuit of a good relationship with God, the right relationship with God, a good, healthy relationship with yourself. Are you comfortable with yourself? Do you like you? And then a healthy relationship with other people. If you really want a good life, a great life, to be happy, become obsessive about building good relationships in those three areas. The last time we were together, we talked about a healthy relationship with God. That God had revealed himself in Jesus Christ. This is not an implied swipe or slap at other religions of the world, but I can hear the same arguments about faith that you've probably heard, and many people today are so taken up with survival, they really don't have time for religious conversation and religious fervor about whether God's real or not. But the truth of the matter is, it's on your mind. God's on your mind, particularly when maybe you lose a loved one or a catastrophe hits, and the question inevitably comes up, why didn't God prevent that terrible tragedy from happening to that wonderful person? What a meanie he must be. He doesn't care if he's there. I can't imagine why he's not involved in everything that could possibly hurt me. That's the attitude about God. But if you really want to know God, you can. You can, and I know I can hear some of your minds right now. It's presumptuous for anybody to think that they have the answer about an unknown entity like God. Why can't you be content to let people make God in their own image instead of trying to force feed your concept of God on other people? I've heard it. I've been there, and probably was one of the guys who used to have that attitude, because I myself was kind of unsure about that God stuff. I was kind of uncomfortable about people talking about a relationship with God. But as I shared before, I simply bought a Bible, and I sat down with this in mind. I can read just as good, and I'm just as intelligent as anybody on this planet, and I'm going to start with a book that says that you can find answers about God in it. So I bought a Bible. I bought one that I could understand, and I started reading from the very beginning all the way to the book of Hebrews, and I hit brakes because by then I had digested so much information that a picture emerged off of the pages, and I had to make a decision. If these things that the Bible purports are true, and I don't believe them, then I have everything to lose. If they're false, I've got nothing to lose. But what if this stuff is real? So I chose to believe that the testimony of God loving me and taking on human form so that I can understand him in very practical ways through that person of Jesus, that story that we've read since we were children in the book of Luke, chapter 2, about the little baby, in the manger, born and, wrapped in swaddling clothes and all of that stuff. At one time, all I thought that was for was, Christian stuff you do at Christmas time. But I have come to believe it. I believe it. Yes, I do. And what I offer to you is I want you to take up the challenge to actually, before you dismiss the Bible as some book written by men, some book that's got some angle trying to get you to believe something that's going to hurt you, I challenge you to take the time to actually read it. Read it. And what would you be reading it for? To try to prove a religious point? No. God loves me. God loves you. God is real. And it is to every man's benefit on this planet to put away his perception of God and listen to who God says he is. Put away your arguments for the time it takes to read the book. If you do not come to the same conclusion that God loves you and it's to your advantage to embrace him back, then you've always been free to just dismiss the whole issue. But I have a slight warning. If you're really going to live a balanced and happy life, you need to build relationships in 3 areas. You need to have a right relationship with God, a right relationship with yourself. Are you comfortable in your own skin? Do you like you? And then, are you comfortable loving toward other people? I want to focus some attention on that aspect of relationship in our time together right now. You've got a relationship with God that's balanced, and out of that healthy relationship with a living God who's real and who is the example of love, of uncondemning love and grace. That's a powerful word. Let's slow down a minute and see what that actually means. Picture a God who can do anything, who is all-powerful, all-knowing. Could you add to this, all-loving? That doesn't mean that anything goes. It means that he can be trusted to define what love is because there is no imperfection in him. I hate to get theological on you, but bear with me. The nature of God is such, and even if you were inventing God, he ought to at least be capable of not lying and loving people. Be relieved. He is truth, and he does love people. But you're not going to know that just reading it. The invitation to read and know the character of God is to put faith in that character, faith in that love, and then begin to enjoy what it means to walk arm in arm, heart to heart, with a God who wants to reveal himself to you so that you can have a good life. Out of that healthy relationship, you're now able to feel good about who you are. I know I've gone through the mindsets where you have one brand of religion who just says you are dirty, rotten, filthy, no good something or other. And that's the only way you can appreciate grace, is to absolutely be filthy, miserable, worm. And then I've seen the other extreme, reactionary extreme to the you're a filthy, dirty person to you're just absolutely wonderful. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You don't have to change. You're perfect. 2 extremes. And everybody knows that the extremes are probably wrong. The truth of this is grace can touch a broken thing and make it whole. God's grace can take a filthy thing and make it clean. God's grace can take a hurting thing and make it whole. For we are saved by grace. Saved. You didn't understand that word. It's a strange word to you. Saved. How can I explain it in this term? Saved is a word that describes someone who was in a condition that could not remedy their own condition. Terminal, desperate, fatal, final. And grace comes in and gives that person who is empty, broken, fatal, final, a life that renews that person to the kind of life that God intended you to have in the first place. If you're not getting all this and you're not taking notes, nobody sits in the house at this time of night with a pen and pad, so I understand that. But I invite you to go to MikeGonzalez.tv and you can play this portion again, and I want you to listen. I want you to soak this in, because there's nothing more important than having a good life. Make your life better. Even if you don't understand how what I'm saying right now connects with all of the real problems that you see around you and that you are experiencing or have experienced in the past. My interaction over 30 years with people, I see themes, I see patterns. And what I see, no matter who, no matter what the culture, no matter what age, I see brokenness in 3 areas of their lives. Even whether they're excellent in business, that only lasts for a while if you don't really have an honest relationship with your customers and with your employees. All of us have seen businesses that fly high for a long, long time and then crash, only to find out that it was smoke and mirrors, or that the people behind the company knew the mechanics of business and can make it work until the human factor burdened the business down so terribly that it could only crash and burn. Relationship is the fuel for making a better life. A right relationship with God, a right relationship with yourself, and a right relationship with others. This sounds overly simplistic, but I think in order to get a handle on things, they have to be simple. And then when you dig into them, you see the complexity, you see the richness of it. A healthy relationship with yourself. If you played a DVD, if it could record all the things that you tell yourself on a daily basis, if you could hear your self-image played back to you, is it healthy? Does what you say to yourself give you advantage or disadvantage? What you think about in your private, what you think about yourself. I'm not talking about your thoughts about ice cream or your thoughts about, topics that you're supposed to be careful about. I'm thinking, what do you think about who you are? Do you really have a purpose? Do you really think you matter? This is just an observation. I probably encountered thousands upon thousands of people over 30 years of public interaction as a public speaker and a Christian minister. Thousands. Their faces sometimes still float through my mind, and I still hear things that they say, and they stick with you, and they provoked me to ask questions. And this is a simple question. Do people really believe that they matter? How do you know that you matter? Are you happy about who you are? Are you content with yourself? Are you ashamed? Do you carry around a shame of being who you are? Everybody says that there are two people walking around in one body at one time. It's the one that you want people to see and the one's hiding behind the mask. And I think all of us are like that until we come to a place of comfort about who we are. Then the masks come off. And then people can actually see the real you. You know what they'll probably discover? Wonderful gifts, a beautiful heart. But they won't do that until you discover who God has made you to be, the plan He has for your life. I suggested that in order to have a better life, a good life, you have to be balanced in these three areas: a relationship with God, a relationship with yourself, healthy relationship with yourself, healthy self-image, healthy self-esteem, and then healthy relationships, healthy attitudes toward other people. You can't help but be happy. I mean, when you see a funny joke, you laugh without being intellectual. You just laugh because it's funny. Well, if you do these things, build health in your relationships with God, yourself, and others, the natural result is a happiness that you've never felt before, a contentment. You'll start discovering things. Your mind will begin to work differently, because instead of focusing all of the things that you feel are wrong with you, instead of spending all of your life trying to fix what you believe is broken, which is probably 10% of the stuff that you really need to be focused on, if you focused one day on 80%, on all the stuff that works for you. I like people. This just lists all the things that you can do, all the things that you like, all the things that you think are good. That's healthier than walking around trying to improve the 10% of your life that makes you miserable. Whatever you focus on automatically blurs out everything else. And it's unfortunate that as a habit in our culture, perhaps in other cultures too, but I know the one in which I grew, that we were preoccupied with being better by focusing on our problems. You need to fix that. You need to change that. And when you want people to like you, you start trying to fix that or change that, whatever that is. If you're too tall, you try to be short. If you're too short, you try to be tall. Your hair's the wrong color, you change it. Why? It's because you really haven't grown comfortable with who you are. You don't know who you are. You think that the you is defined by the people around you. That's why we spend so much time trying to be accepted, joining clubs, going through stupid initiations where if you thought 10 minutes about it, you'd never do it. You'd never do it. Do you like you? Can you stand in the mirror and say, I like the person I'm looking at? On what basis? When you discover a right relationship with God and you understand He really loves you, He really loves you. He doesn't love you in spite. Well, I really like Mike, but I'm always mindful of his shortcomings, but I like him. That's not God. See, God is of a nature that whatever He touches, it changes. If it's broken and He touches it, it gets repaired. But because we're not things or toys, when we interact with God the right way, our interaction with Him makes us healthy. Our thoughts change, our outlook changes, the way we treat other people changes, but most importantly, the way we see ourselves changes. We become healthy about who we are. You begin not to understand your purpose in employment or career, but you begin to understand your purpose and you think about as much about your purpose as a little baby thinks when he's being held by his mom or dad. I have 8 children. They're all different. I have 6 girls and 2 boys. All different. Not one of them, when they were born, looked up at me and said, what is my purpose? Why did you bring me here? Not one. As they began to grow and as they began to encounter falling down, skinning a knee, looking at daddy to see if he was going to yell or whether he approved, it's amazing all that goes on in forming our self-image. The people closest to us can do us some desperate damage, or they can do us some great good. Just a frown of disapproval you can bring somebody really down just by frowning. You don't even have to say a word. You don't have to call them a name or something like that, just by your countenance. Because what is it? We're wired for relationship. We really want to fit in. We want friends. We want to interact with people. That's the way we're made. But I think we need to also understand we're also wired to know God. We're also wired to choose healthy relationships with people who can speak life into us. And if we can't find them, we need to get smart enough to start speaking life to ourselves. Instead of waking up, going through your day trying to see how much trouble you can avoid, why don't you try to see how much good you can do? It's amazing when you flip-flop your perspective, your paradigm of how you look at life and your purpose here. You're not here to just solve problems. You're here to discover solutions. It's amazing. A discovery is exhilarating. You're minding your own business. You're just going about living. And because you're connected to God, because you're happy about yourself, you're not meditating on every problem you have, all of a sudden, discovery follows you. You start seeing things that you couldn't see. You look around and say, did you guys see that? And the reason you can see it is because your outlook is entirely different. You're not looking for problems, you're looking for solutions. You're not looking for shortcomings, you're looking for gifts. If I gave a piece of paper, I've done this before, and I in a classroom setting, I just did this just so people could get a real impact, and I suggest you do it too. Get a piece of paper and write down everything that you think is truly marvelous about yourself. Truly wonderful. I am so wonderful in this area. I am truly marvelous in this area, and I can barely stand myself in this area. Can you do that? Here's what I found. When I ask people to do that, they experience great discomfort because somehow they got a program that you're never supposed to say nice things about yourself. You're supposed to leave that to other people. And again, I challenge you. If you could hear the stuff you do say about you all day long, all year long, if it was somehow able to be put on a CD and you popped it in your little CD player or iPod and you listen, this is the soundtrack of my life. This is what I tell myself. This is how I talk to me. Is that stuff coming into your ear good for you? Does it lift you or does it put you down? It's hard to be a friend to somebody else if you're your own worst enemy. I mean, you don't have to hear criticism from other people if it's all you hear from yourself. Now, mind you, I see people who go to the extreme and they tell themselves lies. I'm wonderful when they're really not. I'm honest and unselfish when they're really not. No, I mean be truthful and honest about assessing those things that you know are good. Because you've seen the whole thing. If you got on a nice white suit, but there's a little speck on it, what do people see first? The speck. They miss the whole suit, but they see the speck. I don't know why we're that way. I think it's because we've trained ourselves to be that way. But if you train yourself to see the good in you, now, I don't care how hard you look, you're not going to see so much good that God's impressed and blown away. I think if you did what I suggested and read the Bible, you'll understand the whole thing about grace and the depravity of men and the shortfall and what sin is. There's no way for you to even understand the concepts from that stuff through casual conversation, people throwing out terms that it takes some real study to begin to comprehend. But you don't have to be cut off from that. You can pick up a Bible and read it just like I did. I went into a Bible bookstore and I bought a Bible that I can understand because I understood these things. I heard that if you want to understand God, at least what we understand to be the testimony of God, read the Bible. In all honesty, I never read it. So the only thing I could have was an opinion. My limited point of view about stuff that I never read. Now, anybody knows that lacks integrity. So for integrity's sake, I bought a Bible and I read it. And I can at least speak firsthand. And my opinions now are based on something I have intelligently considered and have drawn a conclusion. The things I'm sharing with you, I had to walk through these things myself. You're getting digested material, and I suppose it's good. Saves you a lot of the heartache and disappointment that I've gone through. But if you're at a place right now where you can't say that you're happy in your life and you try to dismiss it by saying, well, Mike, everybody has problems. I'm not talking about that. Everybody does have problems. But not everybody has to wallow in their problems or keep those same problems so that they won't have to get new ones. I met people with the same problem for 15 years. I don't know if that's normal. I'm talking about things that they could change, but they don't have the courage to. They don't have the integrity to. They don't have the honesty to deal with seeing themselves, excuse me, in such a way as to do those things that lift you up, discard those things that put you down, embrace those things that make you whole, and throw away those things that debilitate you. Do you like you? If you could clone yourself and your other self would be you, could you spin and pal around with that person for a day, or would he get on your last nerve? Do you like you? You can. If you're the kind of person that would wake up first thing in the morning and says, thank God it's a new day, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God didn't make junk, and he doesn't want me to call myself junk. As a matter of fact, all day I'm going to agree with God, and I'm going to say about me what he says about me. And you know what? God has never insulted me. He's never put me down. I have never even had a condemning thought from God. The minute I am ready to just tear in on myself, I hear this encouraging word saying, Mike, get over it. Move on to the next thing. Reach higher. You can do better. You can make your life better by what you choose to say to yourself about who you are. Here's a challenge. The last time I told you to buy a Bible and read it, and I don't know if you've read through the whole thing in the time since we talked. And again, if you want to hear more in depth, because I'm saying a lot of things, it's probably going to take some time to digest. Go to MikeGonzalez.tv and you can hear this all over again, and probably you're listening right now, and I don't think too many people sit around at this time of the night with a pencil and a highlighter and a Bible. So you may have to just go to the website and listen to this again and start jotting down those things that provoke questions. Those things that I'm asking you to consider. Do you like you? I talked about a right relationship with God through Jesus Christ. I believe that that is the only way that you can have a right relationship. And you draw the same conclusion if you would read the same information. You wouldn't be in an argument about all the religions of the world, because the religions of the world are simply perspectives of men who are trying to relate to God. And I'm suggesting to you that Christianity is God's attempt to relate to men. It's his attempt to reveal himself. If you embrace him for who he is, you begin to get a healthy understanding of who you are. Because out of that relationship, you realize that he made you and he has good intentions for you, and that your life has purpose, and that you don't have to be a moving accident through this world, and you don't have to be clueless. I'm not talking about the face you put on for other people, the kind of guy that looks like he knows everything, has got it all under control. I'm talking about the kind of guy that you are on the inside. The one that's peaceful, the one that's content, the one that's happy, the one that without effort speaks life over other people, speaks blessing, the one that celebrates life, the one that celebrates your opportunities, the one that can fall down and simply get back up and try it again, the one that is hopeful, enthusiastic, healthy outlook on life, the one that looks at the glass and sees it's only half full and not half empty. It's not just an attitude, it's a way of living. That's the way you see things. If you could become that kind of person simply by embracing the fact that God has purpose and he's put gifts into you, and if you would meditate on your gifts, your opportunities, and learn how to say out of your mouth those things that God says about you, life will get better, and it will blow your mind that it's happening without all kinds of effort. There's so much more to learn and so much more time that we can spend together. I'm Mike Gonzalez, making life better. Join me right here next time. God bless you.